I never expected that Tuesday morning briefing to change my life forever. What started as a routine reconnaissance mission quickly turned into something the flight manuals never prepare me for. The colonel's face was stern as he pulled me aside after the others had filed out. "Johnson, we've got intel on a high-value target that can't wait. You're going in alone." The weight of his words hung in the air. Alone meant no wingman, no backup, just me and my F-16 against whatever waited beyond the horizon. I'd flown dozens of missions before, but something about his tone made my stomach tighten as I nodded and accepted the mission folder. The pre-flight checks felt different that morning. Each switch, each gauge seemed to carry more significance. The ground crew worked silently, sensing something was different about this departure. As I climbed into the cockpit, my crew chief gave me a firm handshake instead of our usual casual salute. "Bring her back in one piece, sir," he said, his eyes conveying what words couldn't. I settled into my seat, the familiar embrace of the ejection harness across my shoulders. The canopy lowered with a pneumatic hiss, sealing me in my own world of instruments and switches. The engine roared to life behind me, pushing me forward slightly against the restraints, a gentle reminder of the raw power at my fingertips. Takeoff was smooth, climbing through wispy morning clouds that quickly gave way to the crystal blue above. The mission brief was simple on paper: fly to coordinates near the border, gather electronic intelligence, return to base. But simple missions often hid the greatest dangers, as any veteran pilot would tell you. My radar was clear as I reached cruising altitude, the borders of restricted airspace just 20 minutes ahead. The radio crackled occasionally with routine traffic from regional control, but otherwise, the sky was mine alone. I checked my oxygen levels, adjusted my altitude to 22,000 feet, and settled in for what should have been an uneventful flight to the target area. 3 hours into the mission, everything changed in an instant. A warning light flashed on my dashboard: electrical system failure imminent. My heart rate doubled as I scanned the instruments, trying to identify the source. Before I could even radio base, the engine coughed once, twice, then fell silent. The sudden absence of the constant roar was deafening. 20,000 feet above hostile territory, my aircraft had just become an extraordinarily expensive glider with limited options. Training kicked in immediately. Mayday call, restart procedures, systems check. Nothing worked. As the altimeter unwound at an alarming rate, I realized this wasn't going to be about completing the mission anymore. This was about survival, about making a home to see my family again. What happened next would test everything I'd learned in my 15 years of flying. Those first moments after the engine died were surreal, like time itself had slowed down. The silence was the most unsettling part. Fighter pilots live in a world of constant noise, the roar of engines, radio chatter, the hum of electronics. But now there was nothing except the whistle of wind against the canopy as my F-16 began its unpowered descent. I tried the radio again. "Mayday, mayday. This is Raptor 4-7. Complete electrical failure. Engine flameout at coordinates." Static. No response. The primary communications system was dead, and the backup wasn't faring any better. I was truly alone now, 20,000 feet above hostile territory with a very expensive glider and rapidly diminishing options. My training at Edwards took over. When systems fail, you fall back on fundamentals. First priority: maintain control of the aircraft. I adjusted the stick gently, establishing the optimal glide ratio to maximize my range. Each foot of altitude was precious now, buying me seconds to think, to plan. Second priority: assess restart options. I went through the emergency checklist from memory. APU start attempt. Emergency battery power, fuel system check. Nothing responded. This wasn't a simple malfunction. Something catastrophic had happened to the electrical system. Looking at the instrument panel now, illuminated only by sunlight streaming through the canopy, I made the grim calculation. At best glide speed, I had maybe 15 minutes before I need to either be on the ground or reaching for the ejection handle. I scanned the terrain below, looking for anything resembling a flat surface. The mountainous region offered few options, mostly jagged peaks, deep valleys, and dense forests. My mind raced through survival scenarios they drilled into us at the Air Force Academy. If I ejected here, I'd be looking at days, maybe weeks before potential rescue, assuming I survived the ejection and landing. The chart showed a small valley about 30 miles ahead. If I could make it there, there might be enough flat ground to attempt a dead-stick landing. It would be risky, probably damaging or destroying the aircraft, but it offered better survival odds than ejection over the mountains. I gently banked the aircraft, trading some precious altitude for a course correction toward the valley. That's when I noticed something strange, a faint blue glow emanating from the engine compartment warning light. It wasn't the steady red of the standard warning. This was different, pulsing slightly in an irregular pattern. In 15 years of flying F-16s, I'd never seen anything like it. I tried the engine restart sequence one more time, not expecting results. To my shock, the auxiliary power unit coughed weakly to life for just a moment before dying again. That shouldn't have been possible with a complete electrical failure. Something wasn't adding up. The colonel's unusual behavior that morning, the secretive nature of the mission, the strange electrical failure that defied standard protocols. Had I been sent on this mission expecting something like this to happen? As the altimeter continued its relentless countdown, I realized I needed to think beyond the traditional emergency procedures. Whatever was happening to my aircraft wasn't in any flight manual I'd ever read. The altimeter showed 15,000 feet and falling steadily. Every pilot knows that moment when you have to commit to a plan. Hesitation kills. I had just minutes to decide. Attempt the valley landing, eject over slightly more favorable terrain, or try something unconventional with this strange electrical anomaly. My mind flashed back to a conversation weeks earlier with Tompkins from the Experimental Technologies Division. Over beers, he mentioned a classified, redundant system being tested in some of the newer F-16 variants. Something about isolated circuit pathways that could bypass standard electrical systems in extreme scenarios, only to be used when all conventional options are exhausted, he'd said before changing the subject. Was my aircraft equipped with this system? It wasn't in any briefing I'd received. I looked again at the pulsing blue light. If this was that system, how would I activate it? Standard procedures weren't working. I thought about what Tompkins had said, isolated pathways. That suggested a trigger mechanism separate from the main systems. My eyes darted around the cockpit, looking for anything unusual. There, nearly hidden beneath the auxiliary panel, a recessed switch I'd always assumed was part of the testing equipment sometimes installed for evaluation flights. It didn't match any standard F-16 control I'd ever been trained on. With 14,000 feet remaining and precious few options, I reached for the switch, said a quick prayer to whoever might be listening, and flipped it. Nothing happened for 3 agonizing seconds. Then everything changed. The blue light stopped pulsing and glowed steadily. A soft hum began building from somewhere behind me, different from the normal engine sound. The primary screens remained dark, but a small auxiliary display I'd never noticed before illuminated with unfamiliar symbols and diagrams. The stick responded differently now, with a strange kind of resistance that felt almost intuitive. The aircraft seemed to stabilize somewhat, no longer losing altitude quite as rapidly. This wasn't a full recovery. The main engine remained silent, but something was providing minimal power, enough perhaps to extend my glide range significantly. The valley landing might be possible now, but another option had appeared on the small display. Coordinates, just at the edge of my potential range, marked with a symbol I didn't recognize. I faced the defining choice of my career. Follow protocol and attempt the valley landing with whatever this strange system was providing, or trust the coordinates appearing on this previously unknown display. Either choice could be my last. The squadron had lost Phillips 3 years ago when he trusted a malfunctioning navigation system and flew straight into a mountainside. But something about this felt deliberate, not like a malfunction. The colonel's unusual briefing, Tompkins' cryptic comments, this hidden system activating exactly when needed. I made my decision. banking gently toward the mysterious coordinates. I felt the aircraft respond with uncanny precision despite the minimal power. Whatever I was flying now, it wasn't the same F-16 I'd taken off an hours earlier. As I established my new course, the small display changed again, showing what appeared to be a countdown timer. I had exactly 8 minutes and 37 seconds to reach the coordinates before what? I was about to find out. The countdown timer ticked relentlessly as I guided the aircraft toward the mysterious coordinates. 7:15, 7:14, each second feeling like a small victory as the strange auxiliary system kept me airborne against all conventional wisdom. The terrain below had changed, more rugged, more isolated, with deep valleys cutting through the mountains like ancient scars. No settlements visible, no roads, nothing to suggest human presence. According to my knowledge of the region, this area was uninhabited, unmarked on standard aviation charts. Perfect place to hide something you don't want found. The altimeter read 9,800 feet now, still descending, but at a manageable rate. If these coordinates led nowhere, I'd have no second chances. At 5:42 on the countdown, my earpiece crackled to life. Impossible with a dead electrical system. Raptor 4 to 7. This is Gatehouse. Authenticate November. Echo X. Ray 7. The voice was clear, professional, American. I hesitated only briefly before responding with the authentication code for my mission briefing. A code I'd been told was only for extreme emergencies. Gatehouse Raptor 4 to 7 authenticates Sierra Tango Zine. There was a pause before the voice returned. Authentication confirmed. You are cleared for emergency approach to Facility Phoenix. Follow descent pattern on your auxiliary display. Standard communications blackout remains in effect. Gatehouse out. The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun. The small display updated with an approach pattern unlike anything in standard flight procedures. As I crossed between two particularly sharp mountain peaks, the valley opened up to reveal something that shouldn't exist. A perfectly maintained airstrip nestled impossibly between sheer mountain walls. No visible structures, no towers, nothing but the strip itself, approximately 7,000 feet long, barely enough for an F-16 landing without power. The surface appeared to be some kind of composite material rather than standard concrete, with embedded lights now activating in sequence, guiding me toward the approach end. The countdown showed 3:21 remaining. Whatever window I had was closing quickly. I lined up with the runway. Altitude now at 5,200 feet. The strange auxiliary system still providing just enough control to manage a landing approach. No radio guidance, no tower communications, just me, the strip below, and the mysterious display counting down. 2:45, 2:44. I lowered what should have been unpowered landing gear, surprised to feel the familiar shudder as they extended and locked. Flaps responded similarly, defying the complete electrical failure I'd experienced earlier. At 1,200 feet above the runway, I spotted movement, panels sliding open on either side of the valley walls, revealing what looked like defensive positions. Whether they were there to protect me or to ensure I couldn't leave if something went wrong remained to be seen. The countdown hit 1 o'clock as I crossed the threshold of the runway, perfectly aligned for landing. Whatever was about to happen at 0, I'd be on the ground when it did. I took a deep breath, adjusted my approach angle one final time, and prepared to touch down on an airstrip that officially didn't exist, operated by people who'd somehow expected my arrival. The true mission, it seemed, was just beginning. The landing gear touched down with a chirp against the strange composite surface, a sound every pilot loves, indicating a perfect touchdown. No bounce, no drift, just the satisfying connection of rubber meeting runway after cheating death. I had 5 seconds left on the countdown as I deployed the drag chute, feeling the satisfying tug of deceleration. For seconds. 3. The aircraft slowed rapidly on the unusual surface, which seemed to actively grip the tires rather than merely provide friction. 2, 1, 0. As the counter hit 0, the small auxiliary display went dark, and simultaneously, the entire aircraft shut down completely. Not just the engines, but every system, as if someone had thrown a master switch. The F-16 rolled to a stop precisely at the midpoint of the runway, perfectly centered, as if guided by invisible hands. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. No movement from the defensive positions I'd spotted. No communication, nothing but silence and the gentle ping of cooling metal from the aircraft. Then, with mechanical precision, sections of the runway began to move. The surface beneath my aircraft descended slowly. The entire middle section of the runway was an enormous elevator platform. I gripped the sides of my seat as darkness enveloped the cockpit, the aircraft now moving underground. Emergency lights activated along the sides of the descending shaft, casting an eerie red glow across the canopy. After descending what I estimated to be at least 100 feet, the platform locked into position with a resonant clang that vibrated through the airframe. Massive armored doors slid closed above me, sealing out the daylight completely. The underground chamber was enormous, larger than most hangars I'd seen, with advanced equipment lining the walls of technicians already moving toward my aircraft. They wore no identifying insignia, no standard military uniforms, just gray jumpsuits with a small phoenix emblem I didn't recognize. One approached the canopy, gesturing for me to open it. With the aircraft completely powered down, I reached for the manual release, popping the canopy open with a hiss of equalizing pressure. The air carried an antiseptic smell, heavily filtered and climate-controlled. "Captain Johnson," the technician said, not a question, but a confirmation. "We've been expecting you. Please come with me. The briefing starts in 15 minutes. I climbed down from the cockpit, legs shakier than I wanted to admit after the ordeal. What is this place? What happened to my aircraft? The questions tumbled out as my feet hit the solid concrete below. The technician's expression never changed. "Your aircraft experienced exactly what it was supposed to experience, Captain. The electrical failure was triggered remotely once you reached the designated coordinates. The auxiliary system you activated was installed 3 months ago during routine maintenance. As for this facility," he gestured around at the vast underground complex. "Officially, it doesn't exist. Neither does your emergency landing. According to all flight records and tracking systems, your aircraft crashed in the mountains with no survivors." A chill ran through me as the implications sank in. "Are you saying I'm dead?" The technician almost smiled. "Only to the outside world, Captain. To us, you're exactly where you need to be. The colonel sends his regards and looks forward to explaining everything in the briefing. For now, welcome to Phoenix Facility, where we bring pilots back from the ashes." The briefing room looked like dozens I'd sat in before, except for the complete absence of windows and the unusually advanced technology built into every surface. 5 other people waited inside, 2 in military uniforms without name tags or rank insignia, 2 in civilian clothes who had the unmistakable bearing of former military, and 1 figure I recognized immediately despite his civilian attire. General Westmore, former Air Combat Command leader who'd reportedly retired 3 years ago. The general stood as I entered. "Captain Johnson, glad you made it. Your landing was textbook perfect under extraordinary circumstances. Not every pilot we bring in manages such a clean touchdown when the systems go dark." His words confirmed what I'd begun to suspect. My emergency had been entirely planned, a test of some kind. "Sir, with all due respect, what exactly is going on? Why was I told I was on a routine recon mission when clearly this was something else entirely?" The room fell silent as the general considered my question. One of the civilians slid a folder across the table toward me. "Project Lazarus," he said simply. "A program so classified that even its existence is known to fewer than 30 people worldwide. We identify exceptional pilots and bring them here, off the books, off the grid." The general picked up where the civilian left off. "The world believes you died today, Captain. Your family will be notified, a funeral held, benefits paid out. It's necessary for what comes next." My blood ran cold as the implications hit me. "You're telling me you faked my death without my consent? That my family will think I'm gone forever?" I stood, anger rising, but the general's next words froze me in place. They'll be taken care of, better than you could have provided. Your daughter's medical treatments that the military insurance wouldn't cover? Fully funded now. Your son's college education? Guaranteed at any school he qualifies for. Your wife's research grant that kept getting denied? Approved last week with triple the requested funding. He pushed another folder toward me, containing documents confirming everything he'd just said. We don't do this lightly, Captain. But what we're fighting requires extreme measures. The technological breakthrough you experience today, the auxiliary system that saved your life, is just the beginning. We're 5 years ahead of anything the public knows exists, and 10 years ahead of our most advanced adversaries. But we've detected something that suggests we're not the only ones making these advances. The room darkened as a holographic display activated in the center of the table, showing satellite imagery of a remote installation in what appeared to be a mountain range I didn't recognize. 3 months ago, one of our deep cover assets sent this before going dark. The image zoomed in, revealing aircraft unlike anything I'd ever seen in any briefing, classified or otherwise. We have reason to believe they're preparing for something imminent, something that could shift the balance of global power overnight. The team we're assembling, pilots like you who can handle the impossible, represents our best hope of countering this threat. The general's eyes met mine, deadly serious. You have a choice, Captain. We can reverse the death declaration, create a cover story about a miraculous survival, send you back to your old life. Or you can join us, fly aircraft beyond anything you've imagined, and help ensure there's a world left for your family to live in. But before you decide, there's something else you need to see. He nodded to one of the uniformed officers, who pressed a button opening a previously invisible door at the back of the room, revealing a hangar bay that housed technology that shouldn't exist for decades, if ever. What happens in that moment of choice defines not just a pilot's career, but their entire legacy. The decision to step through that door, to leave behind the life you knew for something greater than yourself. It's a decision faced by only a select few throughout history. Those who accept become part of something beyond ordinary understanding, flying at the edge of what's possible, facing threats the world never even knows existed. They become the silent guardians operating in the shadows, making the impossible landings at hidden airstrips across the globe. Their names erased from public record, but etched into the very foundation of history itself. What would you have done in Captain Johnson's position? Would you have chosen the comfortable lie of returning to your former life, or embraced the dangerous truth and stepped through that door? The most extraordinary advances in aviation history have come from those willing to risk everything, to push beyond established limits. From the first test pilots breaking the sound barrier to those who've experienced engine failures at 20,000 feet and somehow brought their aircraft home. The legacy of courage in the skies continues in ways the public will never fully know. The next time you look up and see contrails crossing the blue expanse above, consider that some of those aircraft might be piloted by men and women officially declared dead, flying technologies officially denied to exist, protecting you from threats officially claimed to be fiction. The miracle at 20,000 feet isn't just about surviving when an engine dies. It's about the countless unseen miracles happening every day in skies around the world, performed by pilots whose names we'll never know, whose sacrifices remain classified, whose victories go uncelebrated except by the very few who understand what was truly at stake. Have you ever wondered what really happens in those remote mountain ranges where satellite imagery mysteriously glitches? Or why certain airspace remains restricted decades after the official reasons no longer apply? The truth waits for those brave enough to seek it, for those skilled enough to fly toward it, even when all systems fail. This isn't just a story about a pilot who survived against impossible odds. It's an invitation to question what you think you know about the boundaries of modern aviation and the silent heroes who push beyond them every day. Will you join us in exploring these mysteries further? There are countless more classified stories waiting to be revealed, technologies beyond imagination being tested in skies you'll never access. Subscribe now and activate notifications to ensure you don't miss our next declassified revelation. Because in a world where official records tell only half-truths and the most advanced aircraft remain hidden from public view, the real miracles happen when nobody's watching, except us. The sky holds secrets that would change everything you believe about modern flight. Are you ready to discover them?